Wisdom of Solomon. From Wycliffe's Apocrypha, a companion volume to Wycliffe's Bible, a modern spelling version by Terence Noble, from the 14th century Middle English translation, by John Wycliffe and John Purvey. Chapter 1. Ye that deem the earth, love rightfulness, or righteousness, feel ye of the Lord in goodness, and seek ye him in the simpleness of heart. For he is found of or by them, that tempt not him, forsooth he appeareth to them, that have faith into him. For why wayward thoughts part one from God, but proved virtue reproveth unwise men? For why wisdom shall not enter into an evil-willed soul, neither it shall dwell in a body subject to sins. Forsooth the Holy Ghost of wisdom shall fly or flee away from a feigned man, and he shall take away himself from thoughts that be without understanding, and the unwise man shall be punished of or by wickedness coming above or upon him. For the spirit of wisdom is benign, and he shall not deliver a cursed man from his lips, or it shall not deliver a cursed man from his blasphemies. For why God is witness of his reins, and the searcher of his heart is true, and the hearer of his tongue. For why the Spirit of the Lord hath filled the world, and this thing, that containeth all things, hath the cunning or the knowing of the voice. Therefore, this he that speaketh wicked thing, may not be hid, and doom and punishing shall not pass by him. For why asking shall be in the thoughts of a wicked man? Forsooth the hearing of his words shall come to God, and to the punishing of his wickednesses. For the ear of fervent love, or the ear of the jealous, heareth all things, and the noise of grudgings or of grumblings shall not be hid. Therefore, keep ye you from grudging or from grumbling, that profiteth nothing, and from backbiting spare ye the tongue, for a dark word shall not go into vain, forsooth the mouth that lieth, slayeth the soul. Do not ye covet death, in the error of your life, neither get ye perdition in or with the works of your hands. For God made not death, neither he is glad in the perdition of living men. For why God made out of not all things, that those should be, and he made the nations of the world able to be healed. For why medicine of destroying is not in those men, neither the realm of hells is in the earth. For rightfulness or righteousness is everlasting, and undeadly or immortal, but unrightfulness or unrighteousness is the getting of death. Forsooth wicked men called that unrightfulness or unrighteousness by hands and words, and they guessed it a friend, and floated away, and they put promises to it, for they be worthy of the death, that be of the part thereof. Chapter 2. Forsooth wicked men said, thinking with themselves not rightfully, the time of our life is little, and with annoyance or harm, no refreshing is in the end of a man, and none there is that is known that returned again from hells or from the grave. For we were born out of naught or nothing, and after this time we shall be as if we had not been, for why smoke is blown out in our nostrils, and a word of sparkle or spark to stir our heart. For our body shall be quenched ashes, and the spirit shall be scattered abroad as soft air, and our life shall pass by as the step of a cloud, and it shall be departed as a mist, which is driven away of or by the beams of the sun, and is grieved of or by the heart thereof. And our name shall take forgetting by the passing of time, and no man shall have mind or remembrance of our works. For why our time is the passing of a shadow, and no returning again of or after our end there is, for it is a sealed, and no man returneth again. Therefore come ye, and use we the goods that be, and use we a creature, as in youth, swiftly. Fill we us with precious wine and ointments, and the flower of time pass not by us. Crown we us with roses, before that they wither, no meadow be, that our lechery pass not by. No man of us be there without part of our lechery, everywhere leave we the signs of gladness, for this is our part, and this is our heritage or our inheritance. Oppress we a poor just man, and spare we not a widow, neither reverence we hoar hairs of an old man of much time. But our strength be the law of rightfulness or righteousness, for why that is feeble, is found unprofitable. Therefore deceive we a just man, for he is unprofitable to us, and he is contrary to our works, and he upbraideth to us the sins of the law, and he defameth on us the sins of our teaching. He promiseth that he hath the cunning or the knowing of God, and he nameth himself the Son of God. He is made to us into showing of our thoughts. He is grievous to us, yea, to see, for why his life is unlike to other men, and his ways be changed. We be guessed of him to be triflers, that is, men of no virtue, and he abstaineth himself from our ways, as from uncleannesses, and he before setteth the last things of just men, and he hath glory, that he hath God as his Father. Therefore see we, if his words be true, and assay we, what things shall come to him, and we shall know, what shall be the last things of him. For if he is the very or the true Son of God, he shall uptake him, and shall deliver him from the hands of them that be contrary to him. Ask we him by despising and torment, so that we know his reverence, and that we prove his patience. By most foul death condemn we him, for why beholding shall be of his words. They thought these things, and they erred, for why their malice blinded them. And they knew not the sacraments of God, neither they hoped for the meed or the reward of rightfulness or righteousness, neither they deemed the honor of holy souls. For why God made man unable to be destroyed or immortal, and God made man to the image of his likeness. But by envy of or from the devil, death entered into the world, forsooth they pursue or follow him, that be of his part. Chapter 3. Forsooth the souls of just men be in the hand of God, and the torment of death shall not touch them. They seemed to the eyes of unwise men to die, and torment was deemed the outgoing of them. And from a just way they went into destroying, and that is of or for us the way of destroying, but they be in peace. Though they suffered torments before men, the hope of them is full of undeadliness or of immortality. They were travailed in a few things, and they shall be disposed well in many things, for why God assayed them, and found them worthy to or for himself. He proved them as gold in a furnace, and he took them as the offering of a burnt sacrifice. And the beholding of them shall be in the time of yielding. Just men shall shine, and they shall run about as sparkles or sparks in a place of reeds. They shall deem nations, and shall be lords of peoples, and the Lord of them shall reign without end. They that trust on or in him, shall understand truth, and faithful men in love shall assent to him, for why free gift and peace is to his chosen men. But wicked men, by those things that they thought, shall have punishing, which despised just thing, and went away from the Lord. For he that casteth away wisdom and lore, is cursed or is unhappy, and the hope of wicked men is void, and their travails be without fruit, and their works be unhabitable, and unprofitable. The women of them be unwitty or unwise, and the sons of them be full wayward or most wicked. The creature or the generation of them is cursed, for why the woman barren and undefiled is blessed, that hath not known the bed in trespass, she shall have fruit in the beholding of holy souls. And a man unmighty to engender or to beget, is blessed, that hath not wrought wickedness by or with his hands, neither thought most wayward things against the Lord, for why a chosen free gift of faith shall be given to him, and a most acceptable heritage or inheritance in the temple of God. For why the fruits of good travails is glorious, and the root of wisdom that falleth not down. But the sons of adulterers shall be in destroying, and the seed of a wicked bed shall be destroyed. And soothly though they shall be of long life, they shall be reckoned into naught, and the last old age of them shall be without honor. And if they be dead swiftlier, they shall not have hope, neither allowing in the day of knowing. Forsooth wicked nations be of hard ending. Chapter 4. How fair is a chaste generation with clearness or clarity, for the mind thereof is undeadly or immortal, for it is known, both with God, and with men. When it is present, they pursue it, and they desire it, when it hath led out itself, and it overcoming getteth by victory the meed or the reward of battles undefiled, and is crowned without end. But the manifold engendered multitude of wicked men shall not be profitable, and as plantings of adultery they shall not give deep roots, neither shall set stable steadfastness. Though they burgeon in boughs for a time, they set unsteadfastly shall be moved of or by the wind, and they shall be drawn out by the root of the greatness of winds. For why boughs unperfect shall be broken altogether, and the fruits of them be unprofitable, and sour to eat, and covenable to or suitable for nothing. For why all the sons that be born of wicked men, be witnesses of wickedness against fathers and mothers, in their asking. But a just man, though he be before occupied by death, shall be in refreshing. For why worshipful old age is not of long time or of long enduring, neither it is reckoned by the number of years. The wits of a man be hoary, and the age of eld or old age is life without wem or spot or blemish. He pleased God, and was made dear worthy or loved, and he living among sinners was translated or borne over. He was ravished or snatched up, lest malice should change his understanding, either lest feigning should deceive or beguile his soul. For why deceiving of trifling maketh dark good things, and the unstableness of covetousness turneth over or overturneth the wit without malice. He was ended in short time, and fulfilled many times. For why his soul was pleasant or pleasing to God, for this thing God hasted to lead him out from the midst of wickednesses. But people saw and understood not, neither set at or put at such things in their hearts or entrails. For the grace and mercy of God is on or with his saints, and the beholding or the respect of God is on or for his chosen men. Forsooth a just man dead, condemneth quick wicked men, and youth ended swiftly or condemneth the long life of an unjust man. For they shall see the end of a wise man, and they shall not understand what thing God thought of him, and why the Lord made him less. For they shall see, and shall despise him, but the Lord shall scorn them. And after these things, they shall be falling down without honor, and in despising among dead men without end. For he shall all break them swollen without voice, and he shall move them from the foundaments or the foundations, and they shall be desolate till to the last thing. And they shall be wailing, and the mind or the remembrance of them shall perish. They shall come fearful in the thought of their sins, and their wickednesses on the contrary side shall lead them over. Chapter 5. Then just men shall stand in great steadfastness against them that anguished them, and which took away their travails. They shall see it, and shall be disturbed or troubled with horrible dread, and they shall wonder in the suddenty of their health or of their deliverance unhoped for. And they shall wail for anguish of spirit, and they shall say, doing penance within themselves, and wailing for the anguish of spirit, these men it be, which we had sometime into scorn, and into likeness of upbraiding. We mad men guessed their life madness, and the end of them without honor. How therefore be they reckoned among the sons of God, and their part is among the saints? Therefore we erred from the way of truth, and the light of rightfulness or righteousness shined not to us, and the sun of understanding rose not up to us. We were made weary in the way of wickedness and of perdition, and we went hard ways. But we knew not the way of the Lord. What profited pride to us, either what brought the boast of riches to us? All those things passed as a shadow, and as a messenger before running or running before. And as a ship, that passeth through the flowing water, of the which when it hath passed, it is not to find a step, neither the path of the bottom thereof in the waves. Either as a bird, that flieth over in the air, of which no proof is found of the way thereof, but only the sound of wings beating the light wind, and carving the air by the might of the way, and with wings moved together it flew over, and after this no sign is found of the way thereof. Either as an arrow shot out into a place ordained, the air is parted, and is closed again anon or at once, so that the passing thereof be not known. Right so we born, ceased anon or at once to be, and soothly we might show no sign of virtue, but we were wasted in our malice. They that sinned, said such things in hell or in the grave. For the hope of a wicked man or the unpious, is as the flower of a briar or a thistledown, which is taken away of or by the wind, and as small froth or foam which is scattered abroad of or by a tempest, and as smoke which is spread abroad of or by the wind, and as the mind or the remembrance of a guest of one day, that passeth forth. But just men shall live without end, and the meed of them or their reward is with the Lord, and the thought of them is with the highest. Therefore they shall take of or from the hand of the Lord the realm of fairness, and a diadem of comeliness, for he shall govern them with his right hand, and he shall defend them with his holy arm. And his fervent love or his jealousy shall take or receive armor, and he shall arm the creature to the vengeance of his enemies. He shall clothe rightfulness for an habergeon or a breastplate, and he shall take or receive certain doom for a bassinet or a helmet. He shall take or receive a shield that may not be overcome, equity, either evenness. Forsooth he shall whet or sharpen hard wrath into a spear, and the world shall fight with him against unwitty or unwitting or ignorant men. Straight sendings out of lightnings shall go, and as the sides of a rainbow, when the bow of clouds is crooked, they shall be destroyed, and they shall skip into a certain place. And full hailstones shall be sent from a stony wrath, and the water of the sea shall wax or grow white against them, and the floods shall run altogether hard. The spirit of virtue or power shall stand against them, and as the whirling of wind it shall depart them, and the wickedness of them shall bring all the land to be made desert, and malice shall destroy the seats of mighty men. Wisdom is better than strengths or strongholds, and a prudent man doeth more than a strong man. Chapter 6. Therefore, ye kings hear and understand, and ye judges of the coasts of the earth, learn. Ye that hold together multitudes, and please yourselves in the companies of nations, give ears. For why power is given of or from the Lord to you, and virtue or strength is given of or from the highest, that shall ask about your works, and shall search your thoughts. For when ye were ministers of his realm, ye deemed not rightfully or justly, neither ye kept the law of rightfulness, neither ye went by the will of God. Hideously and soon he shall appear to you, for why harshest doom or judgment shall be made in or on them that be sovereigns. Forsooth mercy is granted to a little man, but mighty men shall suffer torments mightily. For the Lord, which is Lord of all things, shall not withdraw the person of any man, neither he shall dread the greatness of any man, for he made both the little man and the great man, and charge or care is to him evenly of or for all men. But stronger torment nigheth to stronger men. Therefore ye kings, these my words be to you, so that ye learn wisdom, and that ye fall not down. For they that keep rightfulness, shall be deemed rightfully, and they that learn just things, shall find what they shall answer. Therefore, covet ye my words, and love ye those, and ye shall have teaching. Wisdom is clear, and that shall never fade, and it is seen lightly of or easily by them that love it, and it is found of or by them that seek it. It before occupieth them that covet it, so that it show itself the former or first to them. He that waketh by light to it, shall not travail, forsooth he shall find it sitting nigh his gates. Therefore, to think on wisdom is perfect wit, and he that waketh or watcheth for it, shall soon be secure. For why it goeth about, and seeketh men worthy to or of it, and in their ways it shall show itself gladly to them, and in all purveyance it shall meet them. For why the beginning of wisdom is the veriest or the truest covetousness of learning. Therefore the busyness of learning is love. And love is the keeping of the laws thereof. Soothly the keeping of laws is the perfection of uncorruption. Forsooth uncorruption maketh us to be next to God. Therefore the covetousness of wisdom shall bring one to an everlasting realm. Therefore if ye, kings of the people, delight in seats or thrones, and in kings' rods or scepters, love ye wisdom, so that ye reign without end. All ye that be sovereigns to peoples, love the light of wisdom. Soothly what is wisdom, and how it is made, I shall tell you, and I shall not hide from you the sacraments or the secrets of God, but from the beginning of birth I shall seek for, and I shall set into the light the cunning thereof or the knowing of it, and I shall not pass by the truth. And I shall not have or go the way with envy waxing or growing rotten, for such a man shall not be a partner of or with wisdom. Forsooth the multitude of wise men is the health or the deliverance of the world, and a wise king is the establishing or the stability of the people. Therefore, take ye teaching by my words, and it shall profit to you. Chapter 7. Forsooth and I am a deadly or immortal man, like other men, and of the earthly kind of him that was made first. And in the womb of my mother I was formed flesh. In the time of 10 months I was crudded or curdled together in blood, of the seed of man, and by the according delight of sleep. And I was born, and took common air, and in like manner I fell down into or onto the earth made, and I weeping sent out the first voice, like all men. I was nursed in wrappings or swaddling clothes, and in great busynesses. For why no man of kings had other beginning of birth? Therefore one entering or one entrance to life is to all men, and like going out. Wherefore I desired, and wit or understanding was given to me, and I inwardly called, and the spirit of wisdom came into me. And I set wisdom before realms or kingdoms, and seats or thrones, and I said, that riches be naught or nothing in comparison thereof. And I comparisoned not a precious stone to it, for why all gold in comparison thereof is but a little gravel, and silver shall be reckoned as clay in the sight thereof. I loved wisdom more than health and fairness, and I purposed to have it for my light, for the light thereof may not be quenched. Forsooth all goods or all good things came together to me with it, and unnumberable honesty or incalculable honor is by the works thereof. And I was glad in all things, for this wisdom went before me, and I knew not, for it is the mother of all goods or all good things. Which wisdom I learned without feigning, and I commune without envy, and I hide not the honesty or the honor or the riches thereof. For it is treasure without number to men, and they that used that treasure, were made partners of God's friendship, and were praised for the gifts of cunning or of knowing or knowledge. Forsooth God gave to me to say of sentence, and to beforetake or to take before the worthy things of these things that be given to me, for he is the leader of wisdom, and amender of wise men. For why both we, and our words, and all wisdom, and learning of cunning or knowing or knowledge of works, be in his hand. Forsooth he gave to me the very cunning or the true knowing of these things that be, so that I know the disposition of the world, and the virtues of the elements. The beginning, and the ending, and the middle of times, the changings of whiles, and the endings of times, the changings of manners, and the partings or the divisions of times. The courses of the year, and the dispositions of the stars. The kinds of beasts, and the wraths of wild beasts, the strength of the winds, and the thoughts of men, the differences of trees, and the virtues of roots. And I learned whatever things be hid and unpurveyed. For why wisdom, the craftsmaker of all things, taught me. For in that wisdom unmade is the spirit of understanding, holy, manifold, one alone, subtle, temperate, wise, movable, undefiled, certain, sweet, loving a good deed, which spirit forbiddeth nothing to do well. Courteous, benign, stable, secure, having all virtue, beholding all things, and which taketh or receiveth all spirits able to understand, he or it is clean, and subtle. For why wisdom is more movable than all movable things, forsooth it stretcheth forth everywhere or it attaineth over all, for his, or its cleanness. For it is a breathing of God's virtue or God's power, and it is some clean coming forth of the clearness of Almighty God, and therefore no defouled thing runneth into it. For it is the brightness of everlasting light, and it is a mirror without wem or spot or blemish of God's majesty, and it is an image of his goodness. And when it is one, it may or it can do all things, and it dwelleth in itself, and reneweth all things, and by nations it beareth over itself into holy souls, it maketh the friends of God and prophets. For God loveth no man, but him that dwelleth with wisdom. For why this wisdom is fairer than the sun, and is above all the disposition of the stars, wisdom comparison to light, it is found the former or better or before it. For why night cometh after the light, but wisdom overcometh malice. Chapter 8. Therefore wisdom stretcheth forth from the end till to the end strongly, and disposeth all things sweetly. I loved this wisdom made, and I sought it out from my youth, and I sought to take it as a spouse as to me, and I am made a lover of the fairness thereof. He that hath the fellowship of God, glorifieth the gentleness thereof, but also the Lord of all things loved it. For it is the teacheress of the learning or of the discipline of God, and chooseress of his works. And if riches be coveted or be desired in life, what is richer than wisdom, that worketh all things? Soothly if wit worketh, who is a craftsmaker more than wisdom, of these things that be? And if a man loveth rightfulness or righteousness, the travails of this wisdom have great virtues, for it teacheth soberness, and prudence, and rightfulness, and virtue, and nothing is profitabler than these in life to men. And if a man desireth a multitude of cunning or much knowing, wisdom knoweth things which have passed, and guesseth of things to coming, it knoweth the fellnesses or falsenesses of words, and the assoilings of arguments, it knoweth signs and showings of things to coming, before that they be made, and the befallings or chances of times and of worlds. Therefore, I purpose to bring to me this wisdom, to live together with me, witting or knowing that it shall commune with me of goods or about good things, and speaking together of or about my thoughts, and of mine annoyances or about my troubles shall be. For this wisdom I shall have clearness at or glory with companies, and honor at or with the elder men. I shall be found young and sharp in doom or judgment, and in the sight of mighty men I shall be wonderful, and the faces of princes shall worship me. They shall abide me, being still, and they shall behold me, speaking, and the while I speak many things, they shall set their hands on their mouths. Furthermore by this wisdom I shall have undeadliness or immortality, and I shall leave everlasting mind or a remembrance to them that shall come after me. I shall dispose peoples, and nations shall be subject to me. Hideous kings hearing me shall dread or fear, and in the multitude I shall be seen good, and strong in battle. I shall enter into mine house, and I shall rest with wisdom, for the conversation thereof hath no bitterness, and the dwelling together thereof hath none annoyance or troubles, but gladness and joy. I thought these things at or within me, and I remembered in mine heart, for why wisdom is undeadly or immortal in thought. And good delighting is in the friendship thereof, and honesty or honor without default is in the works of the hands thereof, and wisdom is in the strife of the speech thereof, and great clearness is in the communing of the words thereof. I went about, seeking to take wisdom to me. Forsooth I was a witty or witting or wise child, and I got a good soul. And when I was more good, I came to a body undefiled. And as I knew, that else I may not be chaste, no but or unless God give it, and this same thing was wisdom, to know whose this gift was, I went to the Lord, and I besought him, and I said, of or with all mine entrails of mine heart. Chapter 9. God of my fathers, and Lord of mercy, that madest all things by thy word, and ordainedest man by thy wisdom, that he should be Lord of the creatures, which is made of or by thee. That he dispose the world in equity and rightfulness or righteousness, and deem doom in right ruling of heart. Give thou to me wisdom, that standeth nigh to thy seats or thy throne, and do not thou reprove me from among thy children. For I am thy servant, and the son of thine handmaid, I am a sick or a feeble man, and of little time, and less to the understanding of doom and of laws. And if any man is perfect among the sons of me, if thy wisdom fleeth away from him, he shall be reckoned into naught or nothing. Forsooth, thou hast chosen me to be a king to thy people, and a judge or a doomsman of thy sons and daughters. And thou saidst, that I should build a temple in thine holy hill, and an altar in the city of thy dwelling place, the likeness of thine holy tabernacle, which thou madest ready at or preparedst from the beginning. And thy wisdom is with thee, that knoweth thy works, which also was present then, when thou madest the world, and knew what was pleasant or pleasing to thine eyes, and what was addressed or directed or right in thy commandments. Send thou that wisdom from thine holy heavens, and from the seat or the throne of thy greatness, so that it be with me, and travail with me, and that I know what is acceptable or allowed with thee. For why that wisdom knoweth and understandeth all things, and it shall lead me forth in my works soberly, and it shall keep me in his or its power. And my works shall be acceptable, and I shall dispose thy people justly, and I shall be worthy of the seats or of the seat of my father. For who of men may know the counsel of God? Either who may think, what is the will of God? For why the thoughts of deadly or mortal men be dreadful or fearful, and our purveyances be uncertain? For why the body that is corrupted, grieveth the soul, and the earthly dwelling presseth down the wit, thinking many things. And of hard we guess those things, that be in the earth, and we find with travail those things, that be in beholding. But who shall search those things, that be in the heavens? But who shall know thy wit or understanding? No, but thou give wisdom, and send thine Holy Spirit from the highest things. And if the paths of them that be in lands be amended, and if men have learned those things that please thee. For why, Lord, whichever pleased thee from the beginning, were made whole by wisdom. Chapter 10. This wisdom of God kept him, that was formed first of or by God, the Father of the world, when he alone was made out of naught or nothing. And this wisdom led him out of his trespass, and led him or brought him out of the slime of the earth. And gave to him virtue or power to hold together all things, that is, gave to him the lordship over all lower things. As the unjust man in his ire or wrath went away from this wisdom, brotherhood perished by the ire of man-quelling or manslaughter. For which thing when the water did away the earth, wisdom healed it again, governing a just or the righteous man by a despisable tree. This wisdom also in the consent of pride, when nations had raised themselves, knew a just man, and kept him without complaint or blame to God, and this wisdom kept strong mercy in sons. And it delivered a just man fleeing from wicked men perishing, when fire came down into the place of 5 cities. For which wicked men the land smoking is made desert, into witnessing of waywardness or shrewdness or depravity, and trees having fruits in uncertain time, and the mind of an unbelieveful soul standing an image of salt. For why men passing by, or ignoring wisdom, not only fell in this, that they knew not goods or the good things, but also they left to men the mind or the remembrance of their unwisdom, so that in these sins which they did, they might not be hid. Forsooth, wisdom delivered them from sorrows, that keep it. Soothly this wisdom led forth a just man by rightful ways, that fled from the ire of his brother, and it showed him the realm of God, and gave to him the cunning or the knowing of saints, it made him honest or rich in travails, and fulfilled his travails. It helped him in the fraud of deceivers, and made him honest or honorable or rich. It kept him from his enemies, and defended him from deceivers, and it gave to him a strong battle, so that he should overcome, and know, that wisdom is the mightiest of all. This wisdom forsook not the just or righteous man when he was sold, that is Joseph, when his brothers sold him to men of Ishmael, but delivered him from the sinners, and it went down with him into a ditch, that is, into the prison of the king of Egypt. And it forsook not him in bonds, till it brought to him the scepter of the realm, and power against them that oppressed him, and it showed them to be liars that defouled him, and it gave to him everlasting clearness or glory. This wisdom delivered a just people, and holy without complaint, from the nations that oppressed it. It entered into the soul of God's servant, and he stood against hideous kings, in great wonders and miracles or signs. And it yielded to the just men the meed or the reward of their travails, and led them forth in a wonderful way, and it was to them in or for a covering of the day, and in the light of stars by night. And it translated either led over them, through the Red Sea, and bare them over through full much water. But it drowned down the enemies of them into the sea, and led them out from the depth of hells, that is, from the bottom of the sea. Therefore, just men take away the spoils of wicked men, and Lord, they magnified in song thine holy name, and praised together thine hand, their overcomer. For why wisdom opened the mouth of dumb men, and made the tongues of young children not speaking to be wise or to be fair speaking. Chapter 11. He addressed or it directed the works of them, in the hands of an holy prophet. They made journey by deserts, that were not inhabited, and they made little houses or cottages, in desert places. They stood against kings, and avenged themselves of their enemies. They thirsted, and they inwardly called thee, and water out of a full high stone was given to them, and the rest of or relief from thirst was given to them, out of an hard stone. For by which things the enemies of them suffered pains, for the defaulting of their drink, and the sons of Israel were glad when they had plenty, by these things when these failed to those enemies, it was done well with them. For soothly for the well of everlasting flood, thou gavest man's blood to unjust men. And when they were made less, in the leading away of young children slain, thou gavest suddenly plenteous water to them. And showedest by the thirst that was then, how thou wouldest enhance thy servants, and wouldest slay the adversaries of them. For when they were assayed, soothly they took chastising with mercy, they knew how wicked men deemed with ire, should suffer torments. Soothly thou admonishing as a father, provedest these men, but thou as an hard king asking condemnedest them or the others. For why men absent and men present were tormented in like manner? For why double annoyance or troubles had taken them, and wailing with the mind or the remembrance of things past? Soothly when they heard, that it was done well with themselves by their torments, they bethought on the Lord, and wondered on the end of the outgoing. For at the end of the befalling they worshipped or honored him, whom they scorned had cast out in shrewd or depraved putting forth, and thou didst not in like manner to just men. Forsooth for unwise thoughts, the wickednesses of them were punished, for some men erring worshipped dumb serpents or adders, and superfluous beasts, thou sentest into them a multitude of dumb beasts, into vengeance. So that they should know, that by what things a man sinneth, he is tormented also by these things. For why thine hand almighty or thine almighty hand, that made the world of matter unseen, was not unmighty to send into them a multitude of bears, either hardy lions, either beasts of new kind full of ire, and unknown beasts, either beasts frothing heat or spitting breathing of fires, either bringing forth the odor of smoke, either sending out from the eyes hideous sparkles or sparks. Of which beasts not only the hurting might destroy them, but also the sight or the looking might slay by dread. For why and without these beasts they might be slain by one spirit, and suffer persecution of those or by them, for their own deeds, and be scattered by the spirit of thy virtue or by the breath of thy power. But also thou hast disposed all things in measure, and in number, and in weight. For it was left ever to thee alone to be able to do much, and who shall against stand the virtue or the power of thine arm? For as the tongue or a pointer of a balance, so is the world before thee, and as a drop of dew rising before the light, that cometh down into the earth. And thou hast mercy of or for all things, for thou mayest or be able to do all things, and thou dissemblest, either forbearest, the sins of men, for penance. For thou lovest all things that be, and thou hatest nothing of those that thou madest, for thou not hating anything thou ordainedest, either madest. But how might anything dwell? No, but thou wouldest, or if thou hadst not willed it, either how should a thing be kept, that were not called of or by thee? But Lord, thou lovest souls, thou sparest all things, for those things be thine. Chapter 12. Lord, how good and how sweet is thy spirit in all things! And therefore thou chastisest by parts these men that err, and thou admonishest, of which things they sin, and thou speakest to them, so that when they have forsaken the malice, they believe in thee, Lord. For thou wouldest lose or destroy those old dwellers of thine holy land, which thou loathest. For they did works hateful to thee, by medicines, that is, by witchcrafts, and false divinings, and sacrifices offered to fiends, and unjust or unrighteous sacrifices. And the slayers of their sons, without mercy, and eaters of the entrails or the bowels of men, and the devourers of blood. And by the hands of our fathers thou wouldest lose or destroy from thy middle sacrament, that is, from Judea, fathers and mothers, authors of souls, that is of their children, unhelped. So that our fathers should take the worthy pilgrimage of God's children, which is to thee the dear worthiest land of all. But also thou sparedest these as men, and thou sentest wasps, the beforegoers of thine host, so that those should destroy them by little and little. Not for thou were unmighty to make wicked men subject to just men in battle, either to destroy at once, by cruel beasts, either by an hard word. But thou deemedest by parts, and gavest place to penance, and knewest, that the nation of them was wayward, and their malice was kindly or by nature, that is, made hard by long custom, and that their thought might not be changed into without end or forevermore. For it was a cursed seed at the beginning. And thou not dreading any man, gavest forgiveness to the sins of them. For why who shall say to thee, what hast thou done? Either who shall stand against thy doom? Either who shall come in thy sight, to be the avenger of wicked men? Either who shall I reckon to thee, if nations perish, which thou madest? For why none other than thou is God, to whom is charge of all things, that thou show, that thou deemest doom not unjustly. Neither king neither tyrant in thy sight shall inquire of these men, which thou hast lost or destroyed. Therefore, since thou art just, thou disposest justly all things, also Father, thou condemnest him, that oweth or ought not to be punished, and thou guessest him a stranger from thy virtue. For why thy virtue or thy power is the beginning of rightfulness or righteousness, and for or because of this, that thou art Lord or the Lord of all men, thou makest thee to spare all men. For thou, that art not believed to be perfect or full-ended in virtue or in strength, thou showest virtue or strength, and thou leadest over these men, that know not thee, in hardiness. But thou, Lord of virtue, deemest with peaceableness, and disposest us with great reverence, for it is subject to thee to be able to, when thou wilt. Forsooth thou hast taught thy people by such works, that it behoveth a judge to be just, and benign, either merciful, and thou madest thy sons to be of good hope, for thou deemest, and givest place to or for penance and sins. For if thou tormentedest the enemies of thy servants, and men due to death with so great perceiving, either attentiveness, and deliveredest and gavest time and place, by which they might be changed from malice. With how great diligence deemest thou thy sons, to whose fathers thou gavest oaths and covenants of good promises. Therefore, when thou givest chastising or discipline to us, thou beatest or thou scourgest manyfold our enemies, so that we, when deeming, think of thy goodness, and when it is deemed of us, that we hope for thy mercy. Wherefore unto them, that lived unwisely, and unjustly in their life, thou gavest sovereign torments, by these things which they worshipped. For they erred full long in the way of error, and guessed to be gods these things that be superfluous in beasts, and lived by custom of young children unwittily. For this thing thou gavest doom, into scorn, as to children unwitty or to unwise children. But they, that were not amended by scornings and blamings, feeled the worthy doom of God. For they bare heavily in these things which they suffered, in which things they suffering had indignation, they seeing him, whom they denied sometime them to know, knew him as the very or the true God, by these things which they guessed to be gods among them, when those were destroyed, for which thing and the end of their condemnation shall come on them. Chapter 13. Forsooth all men be vain, that is, void of truth, in which the cunning or the knowing of God is not, and of these things that be seen good, they might not understand him, that is, and they perceiving the works knew not who was the worker or the craftsman. But they guessed to be the gods and governors of the world, either the fire, either the wind, either the air made swift, either the compass of stars, either full much water, either the sun and moon. And if they delighted in the fairness of those things, and guessed them to be gods, know they, how much the Lord of those things is fairer than those, for why the engenderer or the begetter of fairness made all these things. Either if they wondered on the virtue and works of those things, understand they of those things, that he that made these things, is stronger than those. For by the greatness of fairness and of the creatures the Creator of these might be seen knowingly, either might be known by his works. But nevertheless yet in these men is less complaint, for they err, in hap seeking God, and willing or desiring to find him. For when they live in his works, they seek and hold for a sooth or a truth, that those things be good that be seen. Again soothly it oweth or it ought not to be forgiven to these men. For if they might know so much, that they might guess at the world, how found they not lightlier or easier the Lord thereof? Forsooth they be cursed, and the hope of them is among dead men, that called gods the works of men's hands, gold and silver, the finding of craft, and likenesses of beasts, either a stone unprofitable, the work of an old hand. Either if any craftsman, a carpenter, heweth down of the woods a straight tree, and eraseth or pare away perfectly or tautly all the rind thereof, and useth his craft diligently, and maketh a vessel full profitable into conversation of life. Soothly he useth the reliefs or the remnants of this work to the making ready of his meat or meal. And the residue of these things, which he maketh to no work or that to none use, a crooked tree, and full of knots, he engraveth diligently by his voidness, that is, made of or by him by his engraving, and by the cunning or the knowing of his craft he figureth it, and likeneth it to the image of a man. Either maketh it like to some of beasts, and anointeth it with red colour, and maketh the colour thereof ruddy with painture or painting, and anointeth or daubing or painting each spot which is in it. And maketh to or for it a worthy dwelling place, and setteth it in the wall, and he fasteneth it with iron. Lest peradventure it fall down, and he purveyeth for it, and knoweth, that it may not help itself, for it is an image, and help is needful thereto. And he maketh a vow, and inquireth of or about his chattel, and of his sons, and of weddings, he is not ashamed to speak with him, that is without a soul. And soothly for health he beseecheth a thing unmighty or feeble, and for life he prayeth to a thing without life, and he calleth an unprofitable thing into or for help. And for a good journey he asketh of that thing, that may not go. and of getting or of purchasing and of working, and of the befalling or the chance of all things he asketh of him, which is unprofitable in all things. Chapter 14. Again another man thinking to sail in a ship, and beginning to make journey through fierce waves, inwardly calleth upon a tree or a piece of wood, more frail than the tree or the piece of wood that beareth him. For why covetousness to get money, found or was the reason to create that idol, and a craftsman made or forged it by his wisdom. But thou, Father, governest by purveyance, for thou gavest a way in the sea, and a most steadfast path among the waves. Showing that thou art mighty to make whole of or to heal all things, yea, even if a man goeth to the sea without a ship. But that the works of thy wisdom should not be void, for this thing men betake their lives, yea, to a little tree, and they pass over the sea, and be delivered or saved by a ship. But at the beginning, when proud giants perished, the hope of the world fled to a ship, and sent again seed of birth to the world, which was governed by thine hand. For why blessed is the tree or the wood, by which rightfulness or righteousness was made. But the idol which is made by hands is cursed, both it, and he that made it, for soothly he wrought great trespass, soothly that idol, when it was frail or brittle, was named God or a god. Forsooth in like manner, the wicked man and his wickedness be hateful to God. For why that is made, shall suffer torments with him that made it. For this thing and to the idols of nations shall not be a beholding or a reward, for the creatures of God be made into hatred, and into temptation to the soul of men, and into a trap to the feet of unwise men. For the beginning of fornication, that is idolatry, which is ghostly or spiritual fornication, is the seeking out of idols, and the finding of those idols is the corruption of life. Forsooth those were not at the beginning, neither those shall be without end. For why the voidness of men found or brought these idols into the world, and therefore the end of those is or shall be found shortly or soon. For why the Father making sorrow with bitter mourning, made soon to him an image of the Son that was ravished or snatched away, and began to worship or to honor him now as a god, that was dead then as a man, and he ordained holy things and sacrifices among his servants. Afterward in time coming betwixt, when the wicked custom was strong, this error was kept as a law, and images were worshipped by the lordship or under the commands of tyrants. The figure of them was brought from afar, which the men might not honor in open, for they were far off, and they made an open image of the king, whom they would honor, that by their busyness they should worship him as present, that was absent. Forsooth the noble diligence of a craftsman brought in also them, that knew not, to the worshipping of these things. For he willing or desiring more to please the king that took him, that is, chose him to make an image to or of the king, travailed perfectly by his craft, to make a likeness into better, that is, in making the king appear more fairer. Soothly the multitude of men, deceived by the fairness of the work, guessed or esteemed him now a god, that was honored as a man before that time. And this was the deceit of man's life, for why men serving greatly, either to affection, either to kings, put to stones and trees the name that may not be communed or communicated, or the uncommunicable name. And it sufficed not, that they erred about the cunning or the knowing of God, but also they living in great battle of uncunning or unknowing or ignorance, call so many and so great evils peace. For either they slaying their sons in sacrifice, either making dark sacrifices, either having wakings or watches full of madness. Keep now neither clean life, neither clean weddings, but also one man slayeth another man by envy, either by doing adultery maketh sorry his neighbor. And all things be meddled or mingled or mixed together, blood, manslaying or manslaughter, theft and feigning, corruption, unfaithfulness, disturbing or troubling, and forswearing. Noise, forgetting of goods of the Lord or the good things from the Lord, defouling of souls, changing of birth or gender, unsteadfastness of weddings, unordaining of lechery and of unchastity. For why the worshipping of cursed idols is the cause, and the beginning and the end of all evil. For why either they wax or grow mad while they be glad, either certainly they prophesy false things, either they live unjustly, either they forswear soon. For the while they trust in idols that be without soul, they swear evil, and hope not that they shall be annoyed or harmed. Therefore ever either shall come to them worthily, for they deemed evil of God, and gave attention to idols, and they swore unjustly in an idol, and they despised rightfulness or righteousness. For why an oath is not virtue, but the pain of sinners goeth forth for evermore, into the breaking of just things. Chapter 15. Forsooth thou, our God, art sweet, and true, and patient, and disposeth all things in mercy. For if we sin, we be thine, and know thy greatness, and if we sin not, we know, that we be accounted at or with thee. For why to know thee, is perfect rightfulness or righteousness, and to know thy rightfulness, and virtue, is the root of undeadliness or immortality. Forsooth the thinking out of evil craft of men brought not us into error, neither the shadow of painture or painting travail without fruit, an image graven by diverse colours. Whose beholding giveth covetousness to an unwise man, and he loveth the likeness of a dead image without a soul. The lovers of evils be worthy of the death, that have hope in such things, and they that make those, and they that love them, and they that worship them be worthy of the death. But also a potter, thrusting or squeezing the nesh earth, by great travail maketh each vessel to or for our uses, and out of the same clay he maketh vessels that be clean to use or for clean uses, and in like manner those that be contrary to these. Forsooth what uses of these vessels, the potter is the judge. And then he that was made of earth a little before, maketh a god of the same clay with vain travail, and the potter, asked to yield the debt of the soul which he had, leadeth himself after a little time back to the earth, from whence he was taken. But he hath care, not for he shall travail, neither for his life is short, but he striveth or disputeth with goldsmiths and silversmiths, but also he pursueth or followeth workers of brass, and setteth before glory, for he maketh superfluous things. For the heart of him is ashes, and superfluous earth is his hope, and his life is viler or fouler than clay. For he knew not God, that made him, and that inspired a soul into him, and he loveth those things which he hath wrought, and he knew not God, that blowed in him a spirit of life. But they guessed fleshly delighting to be our life, and the conversation of life to be made to or for winning, either covetousness, and that it behoveth to get on each side, yea, of or by evil. Forsooth this man that maketh frail or brittle vessels, and graven images of the matter or material of earth, knoweth that he trespasseth above all men. Forsooth Lord, all the unwise men and cursed be proud over the measure of their soul, and be enemies of thy people, and upbraid it. For they guessed all the idols of the nations to be gods, that have neither sight of eyes to see, neither nostrils to perceive a spirit, either wind, neither ears to hear, neither fingers of hands to touch, but also their feet be slow to go. For why a man made those, and he that borrowed a spirit, made those, for why no man may make a god like himself? For since he is deadly or mortal, by wicked hands he maketh a dead idol, for he is better than these gods, which he worshippeth, for soothly he lived, when he was deadly or mortal, but they lived never. But also most wretched men worship beasts, for why unreasonable beasts, comparison to these men, be worse than they. But neither by sight any man may of these beasts behold goods or good things, forsooth they have driven away the praising of God, and his blessing. Chapter 16. For these things, and things like these, they suffered torments worthily, and they were destroyed by a multitude of beasts. For which torments thou disposedst well thy people, to which thou gavest covetousness of their delighting a new savour, making ready meat or food to them a curlew, that is, a multitude of curlews. That soothly they coveting meat, were turned away, yea, from needful coveting, for those things that were showed and sent to them, but these men made poor in short time, tasted new meat. For soothly it behooved perishing to come on them without excusing, using tyranny, but to show only to these Hebrews, how their enemies were destroyed. Forsooth when the fierce ire of beasts came on them, they were destroyed by the bitings of wayward serpents. But Lord, thine ire dwelled not without end. But they were troubled in short time unto their amending or correction, and had a sign of health or of deliverance, to the remembering of the commandment of thy law. For he that was converted, was healed not by that he saw, but by thee, the Saviour of all men. Forsooth in this thou showedst to our enemies, that thou it art, that deliverest from all evil. Forsooth the bitings of locusts and of flies killed them, and health of their life was not found, for they were worthy to be destroyed of or by such things. But neither the teeth of dragons, neither of venomous beasts overcame thy children, for why thy mercy came, and healed them. For they were tormented in mind or remembrance of thy words, that is, that they should be mindful of thy behests or thy commands or commandments, and they were healed swiftly, lest they falling into deep forgetting of God, they might not use thine help. For neither herb, neither plaster healed them, but Lord, thy word, that healeth all things. Lord, thou art, that hast the power of life and of death, and leadest forth to the gates of death, and leadest up again. But soothly a man slayeth his soul by malice, and when the spirit is gone out, it shall not return again, neither the body shall again call the soul, which is received. But it is impossible to escape thine hand. For why wicked men, denying to know thee, were tormented by the strength of thine arm, they suffered persecution by new waters, and hails, and rains, and were wasted by fire. For why that was wonderful, the fire had more might in the water, that quencheth all things, for why the world was the avenger of or for just or righteous men. For why sometime the fire was mild or tamed, lest the beasts should be burnt, that were sent to or against wicked men, but that they seeing should know, that they suffer persecution by the doom or judgment of God. And sometime the fire burnt on high on each side in the water, above the virtue or the power of fire, to destroy the wicked nation of the land. For which things thou nourishedst thy people with the meat or the food of angels, and thou gavest from heaven bread made ready to or for them, without travail, having all delighting in itself, and the sweetness of all savour. For thou showedst thy chattel, and thy sweetness, which thou hast to sons, and the bread serving to the will of each man, was turned to that each man would or desired. Forsooth snow and ice suffered the might of the fire, and melted not, so that they should know, that fire burning in hail and rain lightning, destroyed the fruits of the enemies. Soothly again this was wonderful, also the fire forgot his own virtue or its own power, so that the just men should be nourished. For why the creature serving to thee the Maker, waxeth white or burneth out into torment against unjust men, and is made lighter or softer to do well, for them that trust in thee. For this thing, and all things transfigured then, that is, changed from the property of their kind, served to thy grace, nourisher of all things, to the will of them, that be desired of or by thee. So that, Lord, thy sons should know, which thou lovedest, that not the fruits of birth, that is, not only the fruits coming forth of the earth, feed men, but thy word keepeth them, that believe in thee. For why that might not be destroyed of or by the fire, that is manna, melted anon or at once as it was made hot of or by a little beam of the sun. So that it were known to all men, that it behoveth to come before the sun to thy blessing, and to worship thee at the rising of the light. Forsooth the hope of an unkind man shall melt away as the ice of winter, and shall perish or disperse as superfluous water. Chapter 17. Forsooth, Lord, thy dooms be great, and thy words may not be or be not able to be fully told out, unlearned souls erred for these. For the while wicked men hold for steadfast, so that they may be lords of the holy nation, they were fettered with bonds of darknesses, and of long night, and were closed under roofs, and they fugitives were subject to everlasting purveyance. And the while they guessed themselves to be hid in their dark sins, they were scattered by the dark hiding of forgetting, dreading hideously, and disturbed or troubled with full great wondering. For the den that withheld them, kept not without dread, for why sound coming down disturbed or troubled them, and sorrowful persons appearing to them, gave dread to them. And soothly no might of fire might give light to them, and the clear flames of stars might not lighten that hideous night. Soothly sudden fire full of dread appeared to them, and they were smitten with the dread of that face that was not seen, and guessed those things to be worse, that were seen. And the scorns of witchcraft were laid to it, and the glory of wisdom was chastising with despising or correction with strife. For they, that promised themselves to put away dreads and disturbings or perturbations from a sick soul, were full with scorn, and were sick for dread. For why though nothing of the wonders against kind disturbed them, they were moved or stirred up by the passing of beasts, and by the hissing of adders. And they trembled and perished and denied, that they saw the air, which a man might not escape or flee from by any reason, for why worst things before occupy often, while the conscience reproveth. For since wickedness is dreadful, it is given into condemnation of or by all men, for why a conscience disturbed or troubled presumeth for ever more wicked things. For why dread is nothing, but help of presumption, and showing of thought of helps. And the while less abiding is from within, it guesseth greater power of that cause, of which it giveth torment. Forsooth they, that came into a mighty night, and coming above or upon from the lowest things, and from the highest things, they sleeping the same sleep, were hurled sometime by dread of wonders against kind, sometime the souls failed by leading over, for why sudden dread and unhoped for came on them. Afterward if any of them had fell down, he was kept closed in a prison, without iron bars. For if any churl was, either shepherd, either a workman of the fields, and was before occupied, he suffered need that might not be escaped. For why all men were bound together by one chain of darknesses. Either a wind hissing, either a sweet sound of birds betwixt the thick boughs of trees, either the fierceness of water running down greatly. Either a strong sound of stones cast down, either the running unseen of beasts playing, either the strong voice of beasts lowing, either an echo sounding again from the highest hills, made them failing for dread. Forsooth all the world was lightened with clear light, and was not withholden in works hindered. But a grievous night, the image of darknesses, that was to coming on them, was set on them alone, therefore they were grievuser to themselves than the darknesses. Chapter 18. But full great light there was to thine holy servants, and soothly the enemies heard the voice of them, but they saw not the figure, either shape, and for also they suffered not by the same things, they magnified thee. And for they were hurt before, they did thankings to thee, for they were not hurt, and that a difference should be betwixt them and the Egyptians, they asked thee, God. For which thing they had a burning pillar of fire, the leader of the unknown way, and thou gavest the sun, without hurting of good harbour. Forsooth they were worthy to want or to lack light, and to suffer the prison of darknesses, which held or kept thy sons enclosed, by which sons the uncorrupt light of the law began to be given to the world. When they thought to slay the young children of the just men, and when one son was put forth and delivered, to reprove them thou tookest away the multitude of their sons, that is, of the first engendered of Egypt, for the leading over of them, and thou lostest or destroyedest them altogether, in strong water. Forsooth that night was known before of or by our fathers, that they witting verily or truly knowing to which oaths they believed, should be more patient or steadfast. Forsooth health or the deliverance of just men, was received verily of thy people, and also destroying of unjust men. For as thou hurtedest our adversaries, so thou excitedest also us, and magnifiedest us. For why the just children of good men made sacrifice privily, and disposed the law of rightfulness into according, they disposed just men to receive goods and evils in like manner, and sung praisings to the Father of all men. But the unseemly voice of the enemies sounded, and weepful wailing of beweepers of young children was heard. Forsooth the servant was tormented by like pain with the Lord, and a man of the people suffered things like the king. Therefore in like manner all men by one name of death had dead men unnumberable, for neither quick or living men sufficed to bury those dead, for why the nation of them, that was clearer than the others, was destroyed in one moment. Forsooth of all the Egyptians, men not believing for benefices or benefits, promised themselves then to be God's people, when the destroying of the first engendered things was first. Forsooth, when all things held restful silence, and the night had the middle way in his course. Lord, thy word almighty coming swiftly from heaven, came from the king's seats or throne. A sharp sword bearing thy commandment not feigned, came forth, overcomer into the middle of the land of destroying, and it stood, and filled all things with death, and it stood in the earth, and stretched forth till to heaven. Then anon or at once the sights of evil dreams disturbed them, and dreads not hoped for came above or upon them. And another man cast forth half quick or half alive into another place, showed for what cause of death he died. For why sights that disturbed or troubled them, before warned of these things, so that they should perish not unwittingly, why they suffered evils. Forsooth the temptation of death, that is, punishment by death, touched then also just men, and moving altogether of the multitude was made in the desert, but thine ire dwelled not long. For a man without complaint hasted to beseech for the peoples, and he brought forth prayer the shield of his service, and he alleged or offered up prayer by incense, and against stood ire, and he set at an end to the need, and showed that he was thy servant. Forsooth he overcame companies, not by virtue of body, neither by armor or arms or weapons of power, but he remembered the oaths, and the testaments of the fathers or the covenants made with the fathers, and by word he made himself subject, that travailed himself. For when dead men fell down by heaps, each on the other, he stood betwixt dead men and the living, and cut away the fierceness of burning, and parted or divided that way, that led to quick or living men. For why all the world was in the cloth or the cloak lasting to the heels, which he had, and the great things of the fathers were engraven in 4 orders of stones, and Lord, thy magnificence was written in the diadem of or on his head. Forsooth he that destroyed, gave stead to these things, and dreaded these things, for why the temptation alone was sufficient to ire. Chapter 19. Forsooth ire without mercy came on wicked men till into the last, that is, till to the drowning of them, for why God before knew also the things to coming of them. For when they were turned, and had suffered or allowed that they should lead out them, and had before sent them with great busyness, the deeds of repenting pursued them. For they having yet mourning betwixt the hands, and they be weeping at the sepulchres of dead men, took to themselves another thought of uncunning or unknowing or ignorance, and they pursued those Hebrews, as fleers away, which they praying had sent forth. For why worthy need led them to this end, and they lost remembering of these things that had befallen, that punishing should fulfill those things, that failed or lacked of torments. And that soothly thy people should pass wonderfully, forsooth that they should find a new death. For why each creature serving to thine behests or thy commands, was reformed to his kind at the beginning, so that thy children should be kept unhurt. For why a cloud beshadowed the castles of them or their camp, and dry earth appeared in water that was before or where water was before, and a way without letting or hindrance appeared in the Red Sea, and a field burgeoning from a full great depth. By which field all the nation passed, that was covered with thine hand, forsooth they saw thy marvels and wonders. For they as horses devoured meat, that is, took the armors of the Egyptians, which they saw dead on the brink of the sea, and as lambs they made full out joy, magnifying thee Lord, that deliveredest them. For they were mindful yet of those things, that were done in the dwelling of them among the Egyptians, how the land brought forth flies, for the nation of beasts, and the flood or the river brought forth a multitude of paddocks or frogs for fishes. Forsooth at the last they saw a new creature of birds, when they were led by covetousness or lust, and asked for meats of feast. For in the speaking to, that is, at the asking of them of or for their desire, a curlew ascended to them from the sea. And diseases or travails came on the sinners, and not without provings or evidences of those things, that were done before by the fierceness or the force of floods. For they suffered justly, by their wickednesses, for they ordained more abominable unhospitality. Soothly some received not unknown comelings or newcomers, soothly others took good men harboured into thraldom or servitude. And not only they did these things, but soothly also another beholding of them was, that they against their will received strangers. Forsooth they that used the same ordinances, tormented with cruelest sorrows, them that had received them with gladness. Forsooth they were smitten with blindness, as they in the gates of the just man, when they were covered with sudden darknesses, each man sought the passing out of his own door. Forsooth while elements be turned into themselves, as the sound of manner is changed in an organ, and yet all things keep their sound, wherefore it may be guessed of that certain sight. Beasts of the field were turned into beasts of water, whatever were swimming things, went in the land. Fire in water had power above his virtue or its power, and the water forgot the kind of its quenching. Again warred flames of corruptible beasts diseased or travailed not the fleshes of the Hebrews going together with them, neither departed or dissolved that good meat, that was departed or dissolved as lightly as ice. Forsooth, Lord, thou magnifiedst thy people in all things, and honoredst, and despisedst not, and helpedst them in each time and in each place. Amen.